So in the case of GLPs, for life or not?
For life, my God. First of all, most people don't tolerate it for years, so forget about life. Okay. I mean, it's there, like I said, I think they're very useful medications, but as a bridge for changing behavior. But you don't want to be on a medication that causes muscle loss. When we look at longevity, the key is muscle. So I'm not going to give you a medication for life that causes muscle loss, right? So there are, there's emerging data on many other side effects. So really, why take a medication when eating a nice steak and a salad will do the job. It's
That
it's
sounds
a
good.
given.
That sounds good. I haven't had my meal yet today, so steak and salad sounds like a good plan. Welcome to Living Fun Podcast. We have Mariela Glandt with us, Dr. Mariela Glandt, and she is the founder and CEO of OwnaHealth, which is doing some amazing things in trying to treat diabetes care here in the U.S. A lot of it through lifestyle approaches. So, Mariela, why don't you give us a little bit on your background and what you're trying to do over at Owna?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm an endocrinologist. I've been treating diabetes for 20 plus years. I trained in very respectable institutions such as Harvard and Columbia. But about 10 years ago, I kind of went through a revelation that I didn't really know how to treat diabetes, and I could really do a hell of a lot better of a job. So at that point, I dove really deep into the root causes of type 2 diabetes and started practicing. And I was lucky I had my own private practice, so I could really start implementing my ideas right away. And I could really try to change diet, which suddenly became like the most obvious thing to do, but I wasn't trained to do that. So, with the help of, reading and reading and reading and a lot of just understanding how to best implement the lifestyle changes in patients, we've treated some thousands of patients. First in a brick and mortar, and then decided to scale up and do Owna, which is basically trying to do this virtually. And we're doing this in the Bronx and really focusing on reversing type 2 diabetes in underserved communities. So kind of in a nutshell where we are.
Super. So, tell us a little bit more about the approach that you take in your virtual care.
Well, the approach it's comprehensive. It's a holistic approach. We are interested there's the doctor, there's a coach or dietitian. There's a lot of monitoring, real time monitoring of what's going on with the vital signs, with the sugar, with the blood pressure, weight, etc. There is a ton of education that goes on a daily basis. And there's also a lot of cheerleading, mostly. It's a lot of emotional support to help patients go through this transformation. It's much easier to take a pill or a shot than to decide that you want to change what you eat, which is the first step. But once you make that change, you kind of change the chemistry of the brain, and then lots of other things start to happen. So, it is a multidisciplinary team here taking care of the patient.
Maybe you can walk us through who the average patient is, some metrics around that, like age and, there's, medical factors that you have to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, so it's an average. The average patient is about 50 or 55. Diabetes hits earlier in underserved populations and hits harder. It happens to be the most of them are women, but actually diabetes is 50-50. And they're usually, well, we are targeting a very sick population. I don't know if you know what A1C is. I mean, I know you do, but I don't know if your listeners do. A1C is your average blood sugar. It's a way of looking at your average blood sugar for the last 3 months. So if normal goes up to 5.7, then 5.8 to 6.5 is prediabetes, and higher than 6.5 or higher is diabetes. Now within that range, we are specializing in patients that have an A1C of 9. So they're very, very sick patients. Our average patient is very sick on average 10 years with diabetes and on multiple medications.
So tell us about some of the challenges that your patients have with your program.
Well, there are multiple challenges. First of all, asking anybody to change their eating habits, which is the first step in this program, is a very big deal, right? These patients are not looking for this. They're referred for diabetes treatment and suddenly they land on this solution. It's not like most people that are looking for a diet change are looking for it themselves. They go out there and search for it. In this particular case, we are like, hey, you want to treat your diabetes? Well, yes, I'm an endocrinologist, but I'm going to focus on diet. They're like, oh, okay. It's kind of a surprise there. So you have to kind of prime the patient for that change, first of all, because this is a change that it depends on the patient wanting this. Now, because they're so sick and tired of being sick and tired, a lot of times this is like very welcome. So the response is actually, yeah, I want to be better. And this is exciting to me to see that there's actually a solution to this, not just adding more and more medications. But it's still a challenge. So that's true for anybody joining the program, whether there's a CEO or a patient on Medicaid, there's still that the changing behavior is going to be a challenge. But this particular population is hit with multiple challenges that have to do with violence at home, that has to do with evictions, that has to do with, few of our patients have had their children shot at gunpoint. I'm saying a few because it's more than two, okay, that have been faced with this, and we've followed them through this. Patients who are followed by ICE and are, afraid of this. We have patients that work multiple jobs and overnight. That's a huge amount of our patients. Food insecurity. There are a lot of issues. We have patients on food stamps. So these are huge obstacles that it's hard to imagine asking somebody who's just been evicted to pay attention to eating protein, and yet we're actually able to hold their hand through those difficult times. And it's very moving to see that they can do this, really against all expectations. So yeah, go ahead.
That's an amazing story because it's a tough patient population. It sounds like there's part therapy, part advisor, part nutritionist, and doctor, and so on and so on. So, what role do medicines? I'll just say GLPs, but medicines in general, and maybe particularly GLPs, play at your practice, and how do you navigate through that?
So actually about a third of our patients are referred to us already on a GLP. GLPs can be extremely helpful. They suppress appetite. But the issue is that they do this more so at the beginning of treatment. When these patients are referred to us, they already have an A1C of 9 on a GLP, okay? But they're referred to us anyway because GLP in this population may not work as well as in other patients. One of the things I do see is that once the diet changes start, the GLP starts to work better, okay? So this is one thing we've definitely noticed. But my goal is really to decrease the dose because high doses of GLP lead to a lot of malnutrition, actually, because it decreases the desire for eating meat, chicken, fish, eggs. Patients tend to go more for the carbohydrate solutions. And this becomes an issue because that's exactly what we're trying to take away. So I prefer let's lower the dose of the GLP-1. It's still very helpful. And in many cases, we're able to get them off and then have the ramp off, be something slow. Because otherwise, and very much once the diet is set in, because in a low-carb diet, you have satiety that's coming from the change in hormonal profile, right? So instead of having high insulin in a low-carb diet, you lower the insulin, so your appetite really decreases. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Yeah, okay.
It does.
So when we have like a natural GLP-1, and actually this diet also increases endogenous GLP-1. So it's a very nice way to ramp off the GLP-1 medications. Now, a lot of these patients are on insulin. 56% of our patients come off insulin. Patients think that this is for life. No, we can get this insulin off. And insulin is really not the treatment we're looking for type 2 diabetes, because type 2 diabetes is, from the get-go, too much insulin in their blood. So if you check the insulin of somebody who's a diabetic, when they're diagnosed, their insulin levels are high, not low. But people think that it's low. Even doctors, a lot of people think, oh, you don't have enough insulin. No, your body doesn't want to respond to insulin anymore, because insulin's role is to store energy, and you've stored enough. So your body is resisting that. That's insulin resistance. So giving you more insulin actually makes no sense. So the first thing I do is actually try to get the patient off insulin. So anyway, patients come in with a plethora of medications, but the number one thing I want to do is get patients off insulin. And the GLP-1s, I don't mind so much, because they're very helpful, and they also lower insulin, in spite of what most people think that they increase insulin, but no, they lower insulin. And that's where we want to go. We want to lower insulin.
It makes a lot of sense, actually. I've heard that before. So in the case of GLPs, for life or not?
For life, my God. First of all, most people don't tolerate it for a year, so forget about life. Okay. I mean, they're, like I said, I think they're very useful medications, but as a bridge for changing behavior. But you don't want to be on a medication that causes muscle loss. When we look at longevity, the key is muscle. So I'm not going to give you a medication for life that causes muscle loss, right? So there's emerging data on many other side effects. So really, why take a medication when eating a nice steak and salad will do the job? It's
That sounds good. That sounds good. I haven't had my meal yet today, so steak and salad sounds like a good plan. So one of the things I like about Owna is I imagine that you help you use the GLP as a bridge to get to lifestyle improvements, and in a way kickstart some of the weight loss and the lowering of the glucose levels. And then I imagine you also put a little bit of time and effort into helping them navigate off of GLPs if that's the course of action. Because I feel like one of the challenges is there's a lot of people on GLPs who are doing it through maybe a practitioner who's not spending the time to help them navigate how to get off of the GLPs. And that's where a lot of problems also happen with some of the muscle loss and some of the weight gain that comes with it without the regaining of the muscle. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, because when you take a GLP-1, you're basically kind of starving yourself, and that's going to work. Starving yourself works, okay? But the problem is that you lose muscle, you lose some visceral fat, which is the fat you want to lose, but you also lose muscle and subcutaneous fat as well. And the problem is that when you lose muscle, you're afterwards, when you don't have that GLP-1, you now have less mitochondria. You have less muscle to burn the food, to burn energy. So you will regain that weight even more. So what I love about a low carbohydrate diet, and a very low carbohydrate diet, is that it gets rid of the visceral fat first. So that's great, because that's the fat you want to lose. That's the fat that's inflammatory and causes all of the chronic diseases. So this is very specific to the visceral fat, because this is the ectopic fat that shouldn't be there, and it's wreaking havoc. That's the fat you want to lose. So that's why this diet, to me, is one of the reasons why this diet is so great. Because instead of, and when we eat, for example, less calories, it's the same thing as the GLP-1. You lose fat and muscle more than a very low carbohydrate diet. So anyway, the idea here is really, if you complement the GLP-1 with a low carbohydrate diet, I think you can get very good results. That's why I like the low dose, because it allows you to pick the right foods, and then you can do that combination, which seems to be, I think, a pretty winning combination for those people that want to take a GLP-1.
And how does exercise play into it?
Exercise is key for many things. It is not key for weight loss. Okay. We've been telling people to exercise, they go to the gym every single day, they don't lose a pound because you really can't outrun a bad diet. Okay. So the diet is 80%. And when we exercise, we come back hungry, we want to eat more. So it doesn't work for weight loss. It has 1 million other benefits. I love exercise. Okay. And don't get me wrong, but we do not need exercise in order to get rid of the diabetes. What I need exercise for is for maintenance. So I don't start talking about exercise and for a while into the diet. So I don't want to demand too much of a person. Let's first change the diet. And then what happens a few months into it, they're like, oh my God, I have so much energy now. Because a very low carbohydrate diet, what it does is it actually increases your energy expenditure. Unlike any other type of diet, all the other, a low calorie diet will decrease your energy expenditure. And so you feel more tired over time. Here, what happens is exactly the opposite. You have more energy. So you're like, hey, you know what? For the first time in my life, I want to go to the gym. And this is what patients say. And this is great. And so exercise kind of is something that the body asks for it later in the process.
So when I wear my Aura ring, I also incorporate a Dexcom Stelo device. They have a partnership now, so it seamlessly integrates with the Aura app. And so I wear it once or twice a year, which is like 2 to 4 weeks a year, just to see how my body's doing and how it tracks with certain changes. That, I guess I'll eat a couple of donuts and cookies just to see, not because I enjoy it, but just to see how it affects my body. And last night exactly a study of one. And last night I played basketball, and I noticed that my glucose levels popped up either during or right after playing basketball, and otherwise my glucose levels are pretty normal. Do you see that happening during exercise?
Yeah, it does go up because you have a lot of hormones that increase sugar, like epinephrine, norepinephrine, cortisol. Glucagon. They're going to increase your sugar because your muscles are asking for it. They're asking for the sugar, so it'll go up. But if you're healthy and you are a model student, what happens is the sugar drops down quite quickly, while in other people that wouldn't happen. In people who are metabolically sick, that doesn't happen.
Gotcha.
But
So,
sorry to interrupt. Exercise can also lower your sugar. Okay, so it's actually you can't always predict what's going to happen because when you exercise, it depends. Especially aerobic exercise, what happens is that sugar goes into the muscle without the help of insulin, so the sugar drops. So it kind of depends also on the type of sport as well.
right, maybe I was having a fight or flight reaction to my basketball game. So recently, there's been a change to the food pyramid where they turned it upside down and made meats and other proteins and healthy fats as the base, and things like grains and sugars and processed foods as the occasional, which is a big change. And I'm wondering, what your thoughts are, pro, con, otherwise.
I'm thrilled. I cannot believe this has happened. I'm shocked. And I'm really, really excited about this. I think it's a real step in the right direction. There are a lot of fine prints that could be improved, but I think big picture, this is a moment that we really need to celebrate. And I think the more the medical establishment understands this, the more we're headed towards improving the situation.
So one of the areas that I'm excited for is because schools and government institutions and hospitals try to plan out their food plans based on the food pyramid. So if it's right size, flipped on its back, then there's a chance that we can start feeding people better at some of these institutions. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with this. I think there are some caveats here, which is that there's a cap of saturated fat to 10%. So if you really want to follow the drawing of the food pyramid, it's difficult to do that with a cap of 10%. But these details will be worked out over time, I hope. But yes, it's definitely a step in the right direction. Definitely, and this is why the food guidelines are so important. And Nina Teicholz has been fighting for this for years. And she is, really bringing the point that you, like you said, the military and the schools and everything depend on these things. So you want to raise healthy children, you can't give them low fat milk. You've got to give them protein and real fat, right? So,
So, and sticking to government a little bit because they're involved in the reimbursement environment. What are your thoughts as it relates to reimbursement environment today for your type of business, and what changes would you like to see there?
oh boy. I mean, the way we are set up right now, there is no way for the government to fund something like Owna the way it is at the moment. Why? Because they pay per visit, but we are a holistic solution. We are a platform, we are a doctor, we are a coach, we are, all this education. So it's been very difficult to get the formula right because the payment doesn't match what we give. But I see I'm very hopeful now about new initiatives that Medicare is coming out with and the access program. I'm really excited about this because I see that there's like an awakening. There is an understanding that in order to treat chronic disease, it's not going to work with a meeting every 3 months. It's see you later. That does not work. Chronic disease is difficult to treat and it requires a holistic approach. I'm very excited to see this in the works. We'll see where that goes, but it's promising.
And what about if there was a reimbursement based, like value based care? If you help reduce A1C or weight or whatever metrics you want to use for a
Yes,
patient, you get paid like a bonus that because it would be a huge savings for the healthcare system, and obviously it'd be a huge benefit to the person, to the patient.
absolutely. The problem is that most of America is still fee for service. So the value base is wonderful. I totally love the idea. We are most aligned with value based, and the contracts that are value based are the easiest because we know we get those results. We can lower that A1C and save you money, that 100%. But unfortunately, most of America doesn't work that way. And in fact, the incentives are completely misaligned. This is a big problem.
But maybe this ties into the next question I'm going to ask you. But if you could wave a magic wand and change how we do healthcare in America, what would you do?
I would focus on treating root cause. I would really focus on educating people about lifestyle. I mean, when you look at the guidelines of most associations, it's like lifestyle is like the first line, which us as doctors, we completely skip over that. We go straight to the meds. I mean, I know nothing about this. I cannot blame any of my colleagues for not understanding this in depth because we learned zero about this in med school, in residency, just not able to really implement any of lifestyle because we say eat less, move more. And we know that for 50 years we've been saying that and it doesn't work. And it doesn't work because it doesn't make sense. Okay. You eat less, move more doesn't get us anywhere. We've proven this already very well. Look around us, right? And people are going to the gym more than ever and really trying on average about 7 diets. Okay. It doesn't work. We have to give the right advice. And that's why, first of all, I'm really excited about the food pyramid change because this is approaching the right advice, right? It's like, let's focus on protein, especially animal protein first, and the fat that comes with it. And so if we did that, I think this would literally turn America upside down. I mean, it really would. If I could wave a magic wand, yeah, this would be it. It actually works every time. It just works, because once that happens, patients start to feel better and then they start to tackle other problems in their lives. And it's like a very positive feedback cycle. So, this is, and the more doctors would espouse this, the more the patients would. If you up to now, most of my patients, then they go to the cardiologist and the cardiologist is like, oh, you're giving them fat? No. Okay. So the patient is conflicted. But I'm hoping that this is going to change. The cardiologist is going to be like, well, that's what the food pyramid says. Okay, go ahead and eat your meat, which I can't wait to hear that. But anyway, it's the magic. If I could wave a magic wand, would be that the whole medical establishment is supporting this change.
So let's see. You went to Harvard for medical school, and I think you did
No,
your
no,
fellowship
residency. No, residency
residency, and you medical school at
at University of Texas.
okay,
And yeah,
and then you did a fellowship as well at
yeah, and
Columbia. Okay,
endocrinology. Yeah.
okay. So have you ever gone back to any of these institutions and said, "Hey, I'd be willing to do a seminar or teach a class or even a one-day event to share with the students at these schools, the medical students, or somebody like yourself? Has anyone, that has an
I've,
enlightenment within medical?
I've sent emails, but have not heard back. Yeah.
And is the challenge that their funding is coming, in general, not specifically those universities, that funding is coming from places that may not want to see a change to the pharma world?
I really think that they have the best intentions. I really don't think they don't even know that we're so influenced by pharma. We just don't have awareness of how deep this goes. So I don't think that's the reason. I think that they want the best for the patients. And this is what we were taught. We were taught that eating fat will clog your arteries. So, I can't blame them. I don't think that they understand the complexity behind the whole interest groups that lie behind of why we got to where we are today. And I really don't think there was like a conspiracy that like said, let's trick everybody into this. I think it was just like build up of things going wrong because of special interest. Yes.
Okay, so let's just do some hot seat questions where I'll just give you a topic and you give me a quick answer. First thing that comes to mind. And we'll just do a handful of those.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Okay.
Turn the light on. It's going to get really bright. Okay. What's the biggest lie we tell people with type 2 diabetes?
I think that eating fat will clog your arteries.
This might tie into the next one. If you could ban one standard piece of diabetes advice, what would it be?
Ban. Eat fruits.
Because of the high sugar content,
Yeah, because they
not
think it's
necessarily
healthy.
possible.
They
Right.
think it's healthy and they can't tolerate it.
I think we were raised eat an apple a day to keep the doctor away.
Right. That's
Oh,
if you're not if you don't have diabetes, maybe.
right. So if you said eat vegetables or eat meat, that would be a better solution than eating fruit.
Oh yeah. But 99% of patients think that, fruits, they should be eating fruits.
Right. Is diabetes care today treating symptoms or causes?
Oh, symptoms, 100%.
Do most people with diabetes actually need more medication?
I think they need more lifestyle change.
So what's the most misunderstood aspect of a low carb diet?
Again, going back to heart disease, people are afraid of heart disease. They think, oh, I'll be thin, but die of a heart attack. But they don't realize that they're actually improving their chances of not having a heart attack.
Wearables, whether it's a CGM or ring or any of the other types of things, if it disappeared today, would you have any problem with still being able to? Would outcomes get worse?
No, and I'll tell you why. I mean, I love wearables, but most of my patients in the Bronx don't have them, and we get the same results. I mean, I wish they would have it. I think they're awesome, but we don't depend on that for improvement.
What's the one thing doctors underestimate about behavior change?
I think they underestimate the power of the patient. The desire, the biggest issue I have is that doctors don't think that the patient can do it, so they don't even mention it. So they really it's kind of a paternalistic approach to this. And I think we're making a big mistake here. Patients are eager to learn.
So even if the doctor, go ahead.
No, if you tell them eat less, move more, then it's not going to work. So I think doctors are kind of burnt out by that because the advice doesn't work. So why bother telling the patient to do it? So they don't even talk about it. But if you're actually giving the right advice, it will empower the doctor because they're giving them advice that's going to work. Okay. And so the patient is actually grateful to the doctor.
And as you mentioned earlier, if the doctor's only seeing you every, say, 6 months or a year, it's impossible for them to know in 15 minutes the past 6 months to a year has been for that person, what health conditions they've gone through. I mean, they'll have some maybe cursory background on it, but they won't really know what's going on in the patient's life. So it's probably hard to dig into lifestyle changes if they don't know what's going on with their life.
Right. That's true. But, even it's amazing how even just one sentence from a doctor can go a really long way. So if the doctor says, you know, eat meat with a salad, I'll see you in 6 months, that will also have a big impact.
I love that. That's actually great. Love that. What's one metric we focus on too much in diabetes care, and one metric that we don't look at enough?
Well, I mean, we are what's called glucocentric. We only look at the sugar, but we are kind of not understanding that the baseline, the basis of all the problem is insulin resistance. And we don't even measure insulin. Okay. We do not measure insulin levels. We're not taught because, like, what's the point of checking insulin? Well, the point is that insulin is driving this whole thing, right? So I can have perfect sugar, but I'm making my cardiovascular disease worse. So patients come on like 80 units of insulin. Well, that is horrible for your heart. But in the meantime, your sugar is perfect. So you completely missed the point as a diabetes doctor. You made your patient worse, not better. So worse because we're just basically storing the sugar. It's kind of like rearranging the furniture in the Titanic. They say, it's like, yeah, like we feel better as doctors because the sugar is normal, but at what cost, right? Like you're just increasing insulin. The higher the insulin, your worse cardiovascular outcomes. And in the end, that's what you care about.
If you don't mind getting nerdy for a second with me, the difference
Sure.
between insulin and glucose.
Okay, glucose is just sugar. We're measuring, it's like a fancy word for sugar. Okay, that's it. That's what there are many types of sugars. There's fructose, whatever, but the glucose, malto, whatever. The point is that when we think about glucose, that's the sugar in the blood that we measure. Okay, so when your sugar goes up, it means your glucose goes up. Now, insulin is just the hormone that opens the doors in the cells and lets the sugar in. Okay, so if I don't have insulin, the sugar will stay in the blood. That's type 1 diabetes. You don't have insulin. Type 2 diabetes, the insulin is like knocking on the cell's door, let the sugar in, but the cell's like, no, I'm too full. I don't want to. Okay, that's called insulin resistance. But you can't have sugar in the blood because that's diabetes. So the pancreas, which secretes insulin, is like, so let's secrete more, let's secrete more, let's secrete more. So your insulin levels start to be high all the time. Okay, insulin is supposed to be high only when you eat. But in the case of obesity or prediabetes or diabetes, insulin starts to be high whether you eat or you don't eat. That means that you're really trying to get that sugar down, but at the cost of very high insulin. So you may have no diabetes, but your insulin levels are really high. And so anyway, insulin is a hormone that does many things. It stores and it grows in every single cell of the body. It either stores or grows. That's the message that it sends to the cells. So, we don't want to grow anymore. We don't, that's why cancer is so related to insulin. You don't want high insulin levels because it's a growth hormone in a way.
And so does that then tell us again, why are we giving even more insulin to some of these patients?
It makes no sense. That's correct. That's why the first thing I do is get them off insulin.
I'm wearing a continuous glucose monitor. Is there a continuous insulin monitor?
Yes, they're working on it. Yes, it's in the works, but it's very difficult to measure insulin. It's a much yeah. There are a lot of technical reasons why this has been really, really difficult to get. Even a point of care insulin measurement is difficult to get.
Tell us a little bit about your business and where you're at, and your funding needs, and your goals for the next few years.
Well, we are, let's see, we're still in early stages. We're in the pre-A, I don't know, something, yeah, let's call it pre-A. Our next funding will be an A round. We have a clinical team of about 9 people and 4 boots on the ground. We have a whole AI team. Of course, you can't do it today without AI, which is an amazing thing, to be honest. And we have, the software developers. We have a wonderful team. We're working mostly in New York. Some other contracts are on the way in other states. And actually, we're looking for a CEO. So if anybody is interested in this, I'm the CEO so far. I think it's time to, shift gears and become the chief medical officer and bring a professional CEO to move this forward as we're really ready to scale big time. So if we can get that message out there, I'm looking for somebody who really cares about metabolic health and who also understands the complex world of insurance companies, digital health, the whole thing. It's quite difficult to get the right person, but we're going to get them.
So you mentioned AI, and just this past week, it was at the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference at and Anthropic are coming out with some health related AI solutions. Any thoughts on AI in your world, and not just the
You know,
process? Where do you see it benefiting both the business as well as the patient experience?
oh my God, it's the most incredible tool. We're using it so much for the patient education part, for the very creative ways of interacting with the patient, getting them, teaching them how to use the app. Patients fall off, they come back, et cetera. All of that is monitored triggered by AI. Responses to what they eat. There are just so many uses for this. It has made our work so much more efficient. So, I mean, one of the things about AI is that it's built on common knowledge, right? So if you go with the common knowledge of what you should be eating, AI is going to get it wrong. And that's why we had to, we have our special team to deal with that, because, it has to be the right advice. And if you go to ChatGPT, you're going to get the wrong answer.
Perfect. Dr. Mariela Glandt, I appreciate you for coming on and having a straightforward, honest share about Owna and the current healthcare system.
Oh, well, thank you so much. All the best.